Well, let's get on with the details of those stories now. The minority in Parliament is asking government to immediately submit a fresh budget statement to the House, insisting that the 2019 budget has been thrown out of gear by the depreciation of the cedi. The minority spokesperson on finance, Cedi, said this is as a result of bad leadership, gross mismanagement of the economy and poor policy decisions of the Akufo-Addo-led administration. Well, this comes at a time when the cedi has seen some slight appreciation despite weeks of depreciating significantly. Mr. Attoforsen wants Ghanaians to brace for tough times ahead.
Arrested and the keys handed over to the Inspector General of Police, the IGP. It was obvious that at the time the Akufo-Addo government was reaping the benefit of the hard work put in place by the Mahama administration before it exited. The subsequent downturn in the fortunes of the local currency shows clearly that the Akufo-Addo government, whose economic management team is headed by our Vice President, has failed to sustain the gains that were left behind by the previous John Dramani Mahama administration. The poor performance of the Ghana cedis comes on the back of huge oil revenues. Ghana has become a net oil exporter following the coming on stream of 2 additional oil fields worked on by the previous John Dramani Mahama administration. Indeed, in the last 2 years, the NPP government have received an equivalent of 6.8 billion Ghana cedis, amounting to about $1.4 billion in foreign exchange from the oil revenue alone, but has still not been able to augment its net international reserves beyond that of end 2016 levels. Nor has the NPP government sustained the stability of the cedi. In addition to the receipt from the oil revenue, the NPP government has also benefited from forex inflows from the controversial Franklin Templeton bonds and a series of Euro bonds issuance over the same period. And I'll show you that in the table that I'll show you pretty soon. Perhaps Dr. Bawumian praised Dr. Bawumian's prayers a few years ago are now getting answered. The cedi is losing value at a record pace. Worse among 140 currencies monitored by Bloomberg PLC, and most analysts predicting it will hit 6 to the US dollars in a couple of months. And as I said, the oil revenues that we have monitored so far, we've been able to look at 2016 oil revenue numbers, 2017 oil revenue numbers, and 2018 oil revenue numbers, and that's the first slide that should have been shown. You recall that in the year 2016, the oil revenue accruing to government of Ghana alone for the year 2016 was $247.1 million US. In the year 2017, oil revenue accruing to government of Ghana is $540.4 million US. You see the last line and the total oil revenue in dollars. And then in the year 2018, oil revenue accruing to government of Ghana, or accrued to government of Ghana, was $934.5 million US, almost $1 billion US in 1 year.
So that is the minority spokesperson on finance, Cedi, earlier this morning when they held their press conference on the performance, as they say, of the government as far as the economy is concerned. Well, parliamentary correspondent Joseph Opoku-Gakpo joins us from Parliament with reactions from the majority. But let's start this way, Joseph. Joseph, it's been a very interesting day for the minority. They've listed a number of things. In fact, they speak about borrowing galore. They speak about how the cedi is performing poorly, and then they speak about the impact of the borrowing galore on the impact of the cedi. Give us a wrap of the highlight of the minority's press conference today, even though we've heard from the spokesperson.
So one of the MPs on the minority side, Isaac Adongo, for example, sums it up as they want to put it. He says the economy is headed for a crisis and that there is the need for immediate salvaging. Otherwise, there is trouble ahead. The minority spokesperson himself points to what he says is the rising debt stock in the country, which he says is worrying. He says investors are shying away from the country because they've lost confidence in the ability of the government to actually manage the economy. He says the economy is unstable, the situation is fueling higher inflation. He says government has been bragging that when they went for the Eurobond, they saw a successful subscription of the Eurobond. But he says that is probably a way to deceive Ghanaians on how the economy is looking, and that it's successful funding when it comes to the Eurobond doesn't necessarily mean the economy is doing good. They're asking government to focus on dealing with issues having to do with the monetary policy. And specifically, the minority spokesperson on finance went in on the Bank of Ghana and said that the institution is being politicized and that the independent economists, they are not being allowed to do their job, and that they are being manipulated in taking decisions when it comes to the monetary policy, which is how come the Cedi is actually struggling. And based on that bit, with how the monetary policy is actually managing things, Kaisel Ataforsen posed 5 questions to the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, and sought answers to. Let me run you through those questions very briefly. First of all, they're asking questions as to why an independent central bank will focus on putting, issues having to do with the stability of the Cedi in the back burner, and that they are going ahead and reducing the monetary policy rate when they've seen that even in the US this is going high. They're asking questions about that.
And Joseph,
independent central bank.
And Joseph, and on that very first question, they also highlights the fact that the central bank itself has done research that does not necessarily corroborate what they did.
Exactly. They claim that per the central bank's research, and pointing to findings in the United States of America, there is a situation where the U.S. policy normalization is strengthening, and that the U.S. dollar is seeing a lot more strength, and that there is the need for the raising of the monetary policy rate here in Ghana, so that then people would have a lot more confidence in the economy here to invest, in the light of the strengthening when it comes to the U.S. economy generally. They claim that's what the Bank of Ghana's own research points to, and that they should have reacted to that with how they would set the monetary policy rate, but they've not done that, which they say is affecting the currency when it comes to the Cedi. They also point to what they say has been an independent research that the central bank has done, which has shown that price stability should be lowered because international reserves are actually dwindling, but the BOG has not acted on that, so they are asking why they've not acted on that. They're also asking why would an independent central bank which focus on price stability also reduce the monetary policy rate in the light of all the issues that are coming up. And so they're posing these 5 questions, and they're demanding answers on that from Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, the Vice President.
Interesting. So they sum all of these up in 5 questions, and that's a very interesting trend, knowing what the Vice President, now who heads the economic team, did when the party was in opposition. But there's been some interesting responses as well from the majority in Parliament. Joseph, do tell us about that.
Yes, so I spoke to one of the majority MPs, George Duka, who thinks that this press conference by the minority is an attempt to divert attention from what he says has been the success of the local currency over the last 3 or 4 days and the stability that it's seen. And George Duka is convinced that the Cedi will get stronger in the days ahead. But there have been other interesting reactions from some of the participants who showed up to come witness the minorities press conference. Awengobet Asebet, who is actually the executive secretary of the Importers and Exporters Association, in a conversation is backing a lot of the concerns that the minority are raising. He agrees that the economy is headed in a crisis direction. He says the finance minister, Kenneth Furiata, has not been truthful to Ghanaians and importers in particular on how he has managed the economy over the last 2 years. He says there has been a deliberate effort on the part of the finance minister to increase taxes, drawing attention to what has happened with Get Fund and NHIS, but the finance minister continues to claim that taxes are lower, and he says this is strangling businesses, particularly importers and exporters, and they foresee a situation where the local currency will get to 6 cedis to the dollar, which would be a very worrying trend, and they're asking government to as soon as possible intervene and ensure that they restore some amount of confidence in the economy and the local currency in particular.
So is that how today's press conference and of course the responses from the majority ended in Parliament today, or are there any more highlights we should know about, Joseph?
One of the demands that they are making is that the 2019 budget statement that was brought to Parliament, they think that the depreciation of the cedi has resulted in a situation where it no longer stands. We are all expecting a midterm budget review statement in July, but even ahead of that, the minority is demanding that as soon as possible the finance minister appears before Parliament and does a review of the various benchmarks when it comes to the expectations of the economy, and they think that would send a better signal to the investor community so they come back and reinvest in the economy. The minority again raising issues with how they say have been job losses as a result of, they say, investors fleeing the country, and they think as soon as possible that there should be the intervention. They think that there's been leadership failure at the level of the president himself, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, which has led to the challenges that the economy is facing and what the city is witnessing. And so the president and his vice should admit that the economy is challenged and that the city is in trouble, and that may well be a first step to helping restore confidence in the currency.
Well, Joseph, I'll have you hang on for me a little while, because it's been a very interesting morning. And if you have followed the trend, this is not really particularly new. You'd have press conferences and counter press conferences. Well, today is no exception, because right after the minority held their press conference in Parliament, government held its own press conference. And you know the mouthpiece, the Information Ministry. Well, the Information Minister, Kofi Ampah, has been reacting to the concerns raised by the minority today at their press conference. Listen.
The substance of their presentation today essentially is that the cedi has depreciated and that importers have taken a hit. Now, this is an already acknowledged point, and government has already been working to address the situation. The Bank of Ghana outlined its short-term measures, the finance minister outlined the medium-term measures, and today you are beginning to see a gradual recovery of the Ghanaian cedi. We expect that these recent efforts, in addition to efforts like the successful issuance, as well as some of the other medium-term items that have been outlined, will lead to an eventual reversal of the recent shocks that the currency has suffered. So the cedi is gradually making a comeback, and this minority attempt to take political jabs is a bit late in the day.
A bit late in the day. That's how the Minister for Information, Kofi Ampah, describes the intervention, if you like, by the minority as far as the cedi's performance is concerned. I do have Joseph Opoku-Gakpo still on the line, and we'll be going to him to find out whether or not the minority indeed knew that the government was holding its own press conference, and perhaps have responses to how they feel about this response they're just getting from government. But let me just introduce you to how the cedi has been performing today. Very interesting trend, I must tell you. And this is a very simple Google. You just get the information right when you put this information, dollar to the cedi. If you put that information in Google, this is what you see. Now, at the moment, and let me just let you know, before we came on air, the cedi was trading at 5 cedis 26 pesos worth. But as I indicated, between 9 hours, which is for about 7 a.m. today until now, it moved from 5 cedis 47 pesos to 5 cedis 26 pesos. That was before we came on air. As I speak with you, if you put this in Google, this is what you will get. And it will tell you that the cedi is trading at 5 cedis 39 pesos at the moment. And this is the trend for today. So far, starting from 2 a.m., the cedi was trading at 5 cedis 40 pesos. That's how it started at 2 a.m. today. Fast forward to 7 a.m., that's just about 5 hours afterwards, it was going up, inching towards 5 cedis 50 pesos. Well, it didn't necessarily get to 5 cedis 50 pesos, because as we went along in the day at about 1 p.m., so we're talking about movement from 2 a.m. to 7 a.m. and then as of 1 p.m. the cedi had gone way down, which is what I gave you to be the 5 cedis 26 pesos thereabout. But beyond 1, it's moving upward, and we're looking at somewhere around 5 cedis, 39 pesos, which is what you see here at the moment. So it's been a very interesting trend since the morning from 2 a.m. Very interesting, fluctuating trend. And we'll be talking to a financial analyst to find out from them whether this is typical. Is it because we're all, focusing too much on the currency, which is why we're noticing the fluctuations? Well, I'll be talking to him shortly. He's in the person of Kofi Ampah. He's a currency analyst. He will help us to, satisfy ourselves whether or not we're just noticing this trend because of the troubles we're having with the Cedi, or whether or not this is really a typical day for the Cedi. Mr. Ampah, thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
I trust that you've been listening to, the little information that I have via Google that have been, that sort of helps us understand how the Cedi has performed just within today. Now, what has happened is that as of 2 a.m., the Cedi was trading at about 5 cedis, 39 pesos, 5 cedis, 40 pesos thereabout. As we speak, in the morning it was at 3.39. Now it moved all the way to 5 cedis, 47 pesos as of 7 a.m. and by 1 p.m. it has gone down to 5 cedis, 26 pesos again. And as we speak, it's moving up to 5 cedis, 39 pesos. Is this typical?
I like the way you're analyzing the currency, keeping a watch on it. Well, let me say that today is an exceptional day for the currency.
Right.
I'm just hoping that by the close of day today, it will come back to a 0.00 percentage depreciation.
Say that again, 0.00 what?
Percentage depreciation, because why I'm saying this is that for the past, let me say, 5 days, we have seen the Cedi recording a better or stable condition, which means that Cedi, the rate of depreciation has been zero. Okay? Neither has it gained value, neither has it lost value as well. Yeah. So the Cedi to the dollar especially has been 0.00. Okay? But if you take the Cedi against the pound sterling, that is a different story to tell. The Cedi has been losing value against the pound sterling continually for the past 2 weeks. As at this morning, it lost very significant value, about 0.50% of its value against the pound sterling. And then the euro is just about the same. The Cedi has lost close to about 0.20% in terms of the Cedi to the euro. So with the dollar, I guess the Cedi seems to be very stable, for the past few days, just about 5 days. But the euro and the pound is not the same story. The Cedi is losing significant value against these two currencies. But it could mean that maybe we are paying too much attention to the dollar.
We're paying too much attention to that. I was just about asking that. So what from what you say, the Cedi is performing worse if you want to compare it to the other currencies like the euro and the pound sterling. Is that?
Yes, that's exactly. I mean, the Cedi is performing worse. As at this morning, the Cedi was exchanging at 6.9, to the pound sterling,
right.
And at the euro, it's about 5.9 to the euro. So you could tell you that the Cedi is almost at the range of hitting 7 Cedi. This is even the interbank rate, okay? So it's hitting the 7 Cedis mark with the pound sterling and the 6 Cedis mark with the euro, and which really is very high.
So between the last 5 days, before I even go on with that part of the analysis, you mentioned that what is happening today is quite, it's not necessarily typical. It's a little bit extraordinary. Do you have an idea what may be causing this? What really is happening?
Well, I guess the intervention of the central bank and the Ministry of Finance. I was not surprised because the announcement that came from the Ministry of the Minister for Finance, Ken Okoreata, that there's a 750 million Standard Bank bridge facility that will be coming in apart, and also the Cocoa Board 900, and then the 3 billion euro bond were very critical information that could trigger the market. I mean, that could trigger the market positive.
But it's interesting. It's interesting, isn't it, that even though you have all of these interventions, you don't see a stable recovery. What you're seeing is more of a fluctuation, which is disturbing, wouldn't you say?
It is, because it's a short-term measure.
Okay.
I mean, this is just a stopgap measure. So definitely nothing has changed. Nothing structural or fundamental has changed in the economy to see a significant appreciation of the currency against the other trading currencies.
Essentially,
and don't forget,
Please go ahead.
That it is also the dollar that is significantly being affected. What about the others?
The others.
Because everybody's talking about the dollar. So the others are suffering quietly while the dollar gains.
Whilst we are busily talking about the dollar, the other currency, the cedi is suffering against the other currencies. So basically what happened this morning is not sustainable. I mean, such interventions are not sustainable to deal with the problem.
Yes, it is not sustainable. Yeah, you know, we've been talking about since when? For the past how many years have we been talking about the city's performance?
Yeah.
And it looks like we're just going merry-go-round the problem, you know, where we know the real problem, the medium to short-term, the medium to long-term solution that we need to work on. And let me say that, look, just as we're talking about the city, the central bank, the Bank of Ghana came out to say that they turned their attention on the forex market and issued some directives on how participants in the forex market must conduct their business to stabilize it and improve information flow. You know, the directive was basically categorized in areas such as ethics, fairness, integrity, general dealing, principles, and market conduct. But what we, as currency watchers, are expecting the central bank to do is perhaps look at how to deal with the activities of the black market, because that is one aspect of the stakeholders in the determinant of the currency that is not being addressed. I really think that if we should pay attention to that, because if you look at the figures right in front of us, these are the interbank rates. But if you go into the market, the rates that are being given you are very high and different from them. Why? It is because that they are significantly pricing the currency much above.
So everybody is going to them, basically.
Come again?
So everybody is going to them, basically.
Everybody is going to them.
But I've engaged another analyst who said that if you look at what is happening on the black market, he says that to solve the problem, I think this was Cedi, the former finance minister. He said that if you look at the black market, it is totally insignificant in finding a solution to the problem. He said that the price, or the prices that you get on the black market, are basically dictated by what you do on the bigger mainstream currency market.
You see, that is where I might disagree, in the sense that we all know, and it is a practice, that even banks of today do work with the black market in determining the pricing of the currency. Banks do that, okay? Banks, the proponents of banks, talk directly with the black market. If they don't know, then we are telling them that they work with the black market people in the price. So some of them get the dollars, they go to the black market to sell. All right, because the black market will give them a better price.
Better rates, true.
All right, so it is not a matter of the fact that it is black market activity has no direct effect on the pricing.
Okay.
There is some effect that we need to deal with.
Okay.
And you know, the pricing is determined by demand and supply. So if the supply side is coming from the black market, he is quoting the price.
Interesting. At the moment, all of us are after solutions. We're looking for solutions. This morning, we've seen press conference after press conference. The minority came up with their press conference, and then the government had its own press conference explaining away. But at the end of the day, people who are trading with the currency, people who are doing business with the currency are saying, look, we're making losses here, and we need to find a lasting solution. Now, again, if you look at the statistics that we have, and this is just a quick search you do on Google. If you look at this year, 1 year, the performance of the city in a year. Last year about this time, the city was trading at about 4 cedis, 42 pesos. If you look at the same period this year, which is March 2019, it's increased from 4 to 5 cedis, 56 pesos. It's not completely off when you look at the period, the 5-year period. What is so spectacular? What is so...
It is completely, I disagree with you.
You do? Tell me.
I totally disagree with you.
Right.
We live in an economy where businesses thrive on the exchange rate. You know, you should understand that most of the businesses that we have in this country are imported, do rely on imported commodities. So therefore, if a business in 2017 had a capital of 100,000, and that 100,000 could import goods worth of about 10 containers at that rate of 4.2. Today, that business has lost a significant amount of its capital due to exchange rate loss. Okay? So I totally think that for us to be, for the private sector to be able to be productive and to sustain the growth within the sector, we should have a stable currency. So at 4.2, significantly, we're expecting that it would have been stable at 4.2, even if the city was going to there was going to be any effect on the currency. It should rather be to our benefit, because of much more stronger economy backings that we should have. Okay.
So if we look at the analysis, the trend analysis, certainly we're headed for trouble, just like the minority is saying.
Clearly. I mean, we are not expecting the currency to have lost that significant value in 2019 at 8.4% depreciation. That's very significant. So it means that businesses and the economy has lost about 8.4% of its value on the currency. That is not something that I think that we should.
And with all the stopgap measures that the government is putting in, it doesn't seem to be working. Last year, we're told that about $600 million was pumped into the system. That it doesn't seem to be working. What do you envisage would be, the intervention that actually does the trick?
Well, I think I heard the Minister of Information talk about some interventions that government has proposed. Well, I have not seen any of them yet, currently as we said them, but I know that there's been a lot of talk about industrialization to address the issue of the high level of import that,
you spoke about the pound sterling, and I'm wrapping up this conversation with you, but I just took a very quick look at the pound sterling and its how the city is performing against the pound sterling. At the moment, it's trading at 7 cedis, 12 pesos.
Wow.
And yes, and it's been quite stable. The city has been quite stable as far as this is concerned. That is today. Because if you look at as of 12 a.m., it was trading at 7 cedis, 16 pesos. That was as of 12 a.m. By 6, it had moved from 16 pesos to 25 pesos on top of the 7 cedis. And then it stayed stable for a while until at about 2:15 p.m. And then it went back to 6 cedis, 95 pesos. Now, fast forward to about 12:20, it was still at 6 cedis. And then it went to 6 cedis, 94 pesos. And it stayed there until now, which is 3:25, and it's gone back up, and you see a significant shoot from 6.94 to 7.10 between 12 o'clock and 2:55. What do you think is happening?
Well, that is the worrying issue that we need to deal with, because it looks like we're not paying attention to the city's trading with the pound sterling and the euro.
Yeah.
And I guess that much attention should be given to it. Government should give attention to it, because if you see the number of students that are moving from Ghana to study in UK, they are very significant. and it's a cost to parents, it's a cost to the country. Okay, so we should pay attention to it. The business trade that we have between Ghana and UK is also very significant, that we should be able to manage it well, especially when it comes to the currency, because then businesses are going to restrict, trade between these two countries in terms of importation of some British knowledge, whatever it is coming from England, it would be very restricted.
Interesting. Sir, thank you so much for your time. I've been speaking to currency analyst. He is Kofi Ampah. Kofi Ampah, they're helping us with those analyses. So certainly, he seems to corroborate what the minority has said, that looking at the trend of the city, looking at the performance trend, we're not really looking at a bottom line that makes us smile, basically. Of course, government has said that, look at the bond and the recent subscription. It's been oversubscribed. It says that it is a sign that investors are still reposing a lot of confidence in the Ghanaian economy. But he's saying that, well, it's not really about the investors and the confidence they have in the economy. The city is still performing poorly. And because we're focusing a lot more on the dollar, we're not really looking at what's happening as far as the pound sterling and the euro, the city's performance on the euro is concerned. You saw 7 cities, 12 pesos for the pound sterling. This is for the euro. And on the euro, the Ghana city is trading at 6 cities, 12 pesos against the euro. Let's head back to Parliament. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo is still standing by for me. Joseph, I'm going to come back to you and just find out from you whether or not the minority is aware that right after their press conference, that government held its own press conference to rebut some of the claims that they made.
Well, they make the point that nothing will change even with government clarification, and they particularly making a big issue of what they say is the country's debt stock, which they explain per their calculation is currently around 210 billion Ghana cedis, and out of that 81 billion cedis was accumulated over the last 2 years. And then they do the mathematics with the exchange rate, comparing the figures now and 3 years ago, converting it to the dollar and converting it again back to the cedi, and say just the depreciation of the cedi has added 15 billion Ghana cedis to the country's debt stock, which they say is worrying. They make the point that the explanations coming from government doesn't make a difference as far as they are concerned. They are pointing to what they say has been some of the measures that government says is introducing to deal with the problem. And let me quote again briefly from their statement, something they make reference to. They think that when you look at the Eurobond issue, which is bringing in some dollars, which government says is helping stabilize the currency and all, they think that the situation would only improve short-term liquidity, but it will not address the external vulnerabilities. And so they're cautioning government not to raise the hopes of Ghanaians, because they think that the current stability that is being seen will not last. And they think the measures that government has announced and indicated that the external inflows are what is helping stabilize the economy. It will not help stabilize the economy for a very long time. Things will revert to the old situation soon, and the currency will see further depreciation. And again, they are predicting 6 cities to the dollar before the end of the year.
Well, we'll see how it goes. But of course, a lot of people wouldn't want to hear that. Ghanaians don't want to hear the city performing any poorer than it is doing already. But what seems factual, Joseph, and we've confirmed with the details that we've got on Google, is that we're not headed in a way that's going to make all of us smile at the end of the day. Joseph, thank you very much for bringing us up to speed on what's happening. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, South Parliamentary Affairs correspondent there, joining me all the way from Parliament. He's been monitoring the minorities' press conference, the responses of the majority in Parliament to the minorities' press conference, and then also what the minority had to say about government response to their press conference. So it's a very big merry-go-round. At the end of the day, the city is still not performing any better. Well,